'Twas the Tuesday after holiday, and all through the net, devs were back up on Twitter, voting for const or for let. Hey, season's greetings. Welcome to another episode of AngularAir. I'm your host, Justin Schwarzenberger, and once again, we have two great guests joining us today. They're going to take us on this magical journey through life on and beyond the Angular core team. But before we meet our storytellers, let's say hey to our panelists. Joining us today, we've got Alyssa Nichol. Alyssa, happy holidays. Oh, we can't hear her.
I'm like, hello. Okay, I think we're good. Hey guys, sorry about that.
Hey, all right, cool. We have Austin McDaniel. Happy holidays to you as well.
How's it going, guys? Happy holidays.
And Mike Brocky. Happy holidays, sir.
Yeah, same to you, my good friend. In this awkward week between Christmas and New Year's where nobody really has any idea what's going on.
Right. But hey, we filled up our episode today with a bunch of guests and panelists. So hey, we're happy. And our guest today, you guys are probably pretty familiar with them. I mean, they were pretty visible during their time on the Angular team out in our community. We have Jeff Cross and Victor Savkin. Jeff, Victor, how's it going, guys? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right. So as we understand it, you guys have began this new venture together, Narwhal Technologies. Kind of spent some time on the Angular core team, and now you're onto that. We want to get the backstory of this journey of how you guys got onto the Angular team, how you got involved in Angular, and then what was it like being part of that team and working on this software that we all have come to love and we talk about every week.
I guess I could start since I was the first one on the team. Not the first one overall, but I beat Victor by about a year, I think. So I came to the team I was working at a company called Deployed that I co-founded with my friend Richie, and we were making a backend as a service product, which was kind of a new idea back then, but now it's pretty popular with Firebase and, and Loopback and other tools like that. And we were building this open source kind of UI-based API construction tool, and Angular they were starting to give talks about it at conferences and things like that, and we really liked the design of it. So we started building integrations with Deployed and Angular. And one day Brad emailed me, and Brad Green from the Angular team, the manager of the Angular team, emailed me and said, hey, this is cool. We should talk and see about working together. And so we met and talked, and a little while later when we decided to move on from the startup, I reached out to Brad, and he was able to get me in for interviews, and eventually through that got to the core team.
So just wait right there. So does that mean anyone that wants to be on the Angular team just needs to email Brad?
No, he needs to email you. That's the key.
Totally kidding.
But what was the size of the team back then?
So at that point, I think I was the fifth or sixth engineer. So there was Mishko, Vojta, Igor, and I think Chirayu and James Devor had joined just before I joined the team. And Brian Ford had also been on the team as an intern the year before, but he hadn't yet joined the team full time. So it was pretty early, and it was a pretty exciting time because this was just when Angular was starting, like people were actually starting to build things with it in the community. And so I got to kind of see it grow from this kind of obscure project to something that so many products and companies are now relying on.
So to give us an idea on our time frame of when you got started there, what was the version number? Because I know that a lot of people are trying to track the history of Angular through the version number.
So I think we released 1.1.5 shortly after I joined. About 6 months or so later, I think we released 1.2. And then it was about another 6 months to a year before we released 1.3.
I heard 1.2 was the best version. I guess it was right when you joined.
Yeah, it was the best version to date. And then 1.3 was the best version to date. And now V4, I think, is the best version to date.
V6.
Version 6. Okay. Yep. So that's how I joined the team.
Cool. So so you got this email from Brad, right?
Hmm.
And then you were just like made a pact, we're on the team, or did you have to go through an interview process?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Brad he gave me a golden ticket. I showed up at Google on Monday, gave it to them, and they started writing me checks and told me I could sit at a desk.
Was there
That's good.
actually a golden ticket? Because I'm pretty disappointed.
Yeah, I wish. So
Probably in a chocolate factory.
yeah, there are chocolate factories at Google. That's the thing I probably miss most about working there. But yeah, so I had to go through the interviews. Everyone does, even no matter how much anyone at Google likes you, everyone's got to go through the interview process. And it's it's a lot like all of the rumors. The questions aren't as obscure and as abstract as a lot of the typical questions you hear out in the wild, but they're pretty intimidating. Mishko was my scariest interview, which like is funny because everyone who knows Mishko knows he's a super friendly, super nice
I was
guy.
gonna say, like, out of all the people on the team, that would probably be for me at least, because me and him just like click. So
Mhm.
why was that scary? Did you just not know him? Or?
So it's so when you work with them, like even now when I work with them, like we worked together for several years. He's really focused when you have a deep discussion with him, a deep technical discussion, and so you want to be really precise in the answers you give, and want to make sure you're understanding exactly what. So it was during his interview. I think, well, I can't tell the interview question probably, but it was a question that I was having a hard time understanding what he was asking me to do, and so it was a lot of him asking me to do something, me going to the whiteboard and starting to write it out, and him saying, What is that? That's not what I asked." And it would be like me, "What are you trying to get from me? I don't understand what's going on." And eventually, after a while, Brad came in to take me to my interview lunch, and I was saved. And at that point, I was like, "Oh man, this was the worst interview of my day. I'm not getting the job." But somehow, I think it worked out. It did work out. I don't know why it worked out.
So that was the story how you got in. So I'm assuming that the story goes that you managed to hack into Brad's email and fire off an email to Victor to bring him on board.
Yeah, Brad and I were pairing on something, and Brad had to use the restroom, and so I worked some magic, and Victor showed up a week later.
Yeah, it's almost like that. I actually got an email from, I think from Brad, because I was confused with another Victor. So we have another Victor on the team, Victor Berchet.
So you got hired by accident.
Sort of. So originally, I got approached by the DevRel team at Google. So I was supposed to work in DevRel. And so I was doing that interview. I was successful. But then the issue, and actually DevRel was a Dart team. And it's before I saw the light, the TypeScript was the future, whatever, So, I was going to be a DevRel for the Dart team. And so I passed the interview. But then because of some restructuring, Chrome and whatever, some like internal politics, I couldn't get the visa in time. And back then I wasn't Canadian yet, I was Russian. And so, Americans don't like Russians, very hard to get a visa. I couldn't move to the States, I couldn't join the team. So the guy, I think it was Sad from the Dart team, like, hey, there's a position in the Angular team. Do you want to join that instead? And like, yeah, it's like it's even better, kind of stuff, because I used Angular a lot before. And I wrote about Angular a lot. So I was more a fan of Angular than that. And so he emailed my application to, I guess, Brad and Mishka, and they thought I'm a different Victor. And like, yeah, we know that Victor, he's French, pretty good, Russian, French is almost the same. We're all in Europe, it's all together. So that's how I started. And then, it was too late for them to, pull the plug. Once I, flew to San Francisco, so I went through the interview and I got into the team.
Did anyone from the core team interview you, Victor?
Who was it? A bunch of folks. Zhbanov, who wasn't on the core team at Angular, but at some point he was. So he interviewed me. It was actually a lot of fun. We talked about hockey and a few other things that I do not understand, because I do not understand sports categorically, and a few other guys. But Mishka didn't interview me. I wasn't as fortunate as you are. Mm-hmm. Or maybe, I was more fortunate. I don't know.
It was a good experience.
Yeah.
Were you brought in to work on something specific on there, or was it kind of more like, and this is kind of for both of you, or was it, hey, look, we're doing this Angular thing. You guys are interested in this thing. Why don't you just kind of join us and we'll work all these tickets and everything? Or was there something specific that like, oh yeah, this guy does this really well. Why don't we get him in working on this stuff?
I think in my case, because I was into Dart like a lot at some point, like a lot. I was recording screencasts, giving talks and whatnot, you know. And the Dart community is very small, relatively speaking, compared to the Angular, the TypeScript community. And Angular Dart was a project at some point that the core team was working on. Now, right now, the team is split, and a separate team is working on Angular Dart. At some point, it was the same team. And I think I was brought in as a Dart, not expert or whatever, you know, but someone who cares about Dart, and who is able to bring some Dart goodness to the Angular framework.
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of the original, Brad really liked the way that I approached user experience and the whole like, treating developers as users and making things nice for them. And so I think that was one of the reasons he wanted. And I naturally, since I had been working on a back-end framework and had done a lot with some things that were kind of new back then, like WebSocket as a primary data protocol. I think for that reason, I kind of naturally adopted a lot of the data type integrations with Angular, with HTTP library and asynchronous primitives like observables, and Angular 1 even working with a lot of the promise integration. And so that's so then in Angular 2 I did a lot more of that with HTTP and observables and offline data type work. But it is pretty much, you get hired and maybe there's a focus that you have, but it's up until recently, it's pretty much been all hands on deck. So like with Angular 1.3, it was mostly, we've got this fix or this feature that needs to get in, who has availability, who's not working on something else, and then you'll jump on that, which is nice because then everyone gets exposed to different parts of the framework, and you can make things more consistent across the framework, make APIs and philosophies more consistent. More recently, the team's been split into sub-teams where we have a TypeScript team who focuses on the Google side of things and the language side of TypeScript tooling. And then we have the core team, which is people who work mostly on the core bits inside of the Angular repository. And then we have the mobile team, which I was leading with Alex Rickabaugh, and Rob Wormald was part of that. And then we have the material team, which is a handful of folks who are working on the material library.
And then did you guys set out to, like, did you make it a career goal? You're like, okay, I want to get on this team. I want to work at Google. I want to do this sort of thing. Or was it more that you talked about you were using this technology, and did it kind of evolve and fall into your lap and you thought, oh, well, yeah, I want to take this journey?
So in my case, it's interesting actually. The first company I worked at, I was 20 or 21, and it's like a startup back in Russia. So, and I built for them a search engine and an ads engine. So you would think it's like super Google-like, but when I joined Google, like I didn't have, didn't do any work on ads, search, or anything backend related, which is kind of interesting. Like for me, it wasn't the goal. It was enjoyable to work with the team because the team was obviously very interesting and a lot of smart folks. But it was also like more enjoyable to work on the open source, just the fact that it's open source, that's in the public, that everything you do is viewed by so many people. You need to be very careful with how you like write your code, how you position it, like how you message stuff. I think that part is more interesting for me, but it wasn't a goal of mine.
I would say for me, working at Google had kind of always been this kind of back in my mind dream of, it would be like it's the mecca for engineers, and so I when the opportunity came up, I got a little excited and was happy to pursue it. But same as Victor, I'd worked in open source as my full-time job for the past 2 companies for the past several years before coming to Google, and the thought of getting away from that was difficult. Like, it's really nice to be paid to work on open source full-time. It's if you can swing a career like that, then go for it, because it's really fun.
What's it like to work on open source all the time like that? Like, is that something that, like, personally, you sound like you really enjoy, what are your thoughts, and what's it like?
You have to have the right personality for it, I think. Like, one key thing is to be able to ignore negativity or ignore.
Yeah, there is a lot of
Like,
negativity. Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of like the constructive criticism is
Yeah.
all like I think you train yourself to really look for and get the good feedback in, but there's a lot of people who there's a lot of entitlement and a lot of people who just complain about things all the time. I'm pretty good at muting that or ignoring it, but other than that, it's like the amount of friction you reduce by using open source is so much nicer than if you have to deal with permissions and getting people access to things and a lot of things that happen in closed systems. So that's the biggest thing to me is I like to be able to move quickly and get things done, share things with other people, get their feedback on it, and have other people in the community submit pull requests and things like that. There's just all that stuff. The efficiency and the way it improves products is so much more appealing to me.
So is that something that the two of you are both going to miss, moving away from Google and the open sourceness of Angular to Narwhal?
Oh, we're not moving away from open source at all. So we're going to keep contributing to Angular 2. In fact, we're both still active. I'm helping with a lot of the work with Universal, moving it into core. Victor's still involved with router and other aspects. And we plan to keep building tools and working with the Angular team to keep progressing things forward. So a lot of the way we're working this new company is to allow us to keep on contributing to open source and to stay involved in Angular.
Cool. So you're saying that you were getting paid to do open source full time prior to joining the Google team?
Mm-hmm.
And so
yeah.
Was that that was at your previous company? Was that something that had always been around as a position, and then you were doing that, or did that manifest in something? Like if I have my own company, right, and I want to get people involved in open source, like how does a company come about and saying we're going to have full-time staff to do that? I mean, obviously at Google, it's like, okay, that they have a product team for that, but for just individual companies.
Yeah, that's a good question. This was an interesting company that I worked at before Deployed. It was called Unicon in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona area. They're in some ways they have a similar model to what our company is, where they specialize in certain open source projects, mostly in university portals and identity management, federated identity, that kind of thing. And they would specialize in having a bunch of staff contributors to these projects who are experts in these projects and would be contributing. And then they would also have clients who would have support contracts, which would help us. We would help prioritize features and fixes in these projects, and we would also help these clients with their implementations and help them answer questions and with design and things like that. And so it was this nice thing where we were working on open source full time, but we were also working with customers who were using the projects full time. So we got this nice perspective of how the projects were being used, and we also got to contribute things that were high priority to these clients and weren't things that we would make up in our engineer minds that would be like, this would be a cool feature, this would be nice. It was a really practical product, and so that was a great company to work for. The culture was really big in open source, and yeah, that was my first job where I actually just got to work on open source projects all day. That's pretty fun.
I feel like that's something that's on the rise, and we're probably going to see more of in this coming year in our industry, is these opportunities for people to find jobs working on open source, but paid jobs through other companies. I feel like that's starting to become more of a thing. Yeah.
There's it's a lot of unexplored business models with open source, I think now, and I do think more people are coming online to see that not everything has to be intellectual property and proprietary and licensed in these ways.
What do you think makes developers so interested to work on open source? This is something I've always curious. I can see like intrinsic benefits from like a business perspective, but like, why do you think developers get excited to work on that?
For me, for one, it's a good career thing. If you're developing a product, if you're at a large company and you're developing some internal tool or even the consumer-facing product, no one really knows what your contribution to that was. And so if you want to move on to somewhere else, you could move in your company and people in the company could see it. But if you want to move on to a different company, people just have to take you at your word that you had a big impact on some product. With open source, there's empirical data of here's what I contributed. Look at these commits and see how I think about writing code. And so that's one thing. And if you have a popular project, then that's even better, because then you have a lot of if you can have a lot of ins with people who are using that product.
Fanboys, you mean?
What's that?
Fanboys.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you've got fanboys on the inside of companies using the product. And then there's a nice.
I just find it interesting because it's like you want to. Why businesses would be interested in doing that, like, would be the opposite, in my opinion. Like, you don't want anyone to leave, right? Or maybe you do, but.
Well, it's actually, so it's a good recruiting tool too. So companies, larger companies who have open source programs, they're able to bring in developers who like the projects they're working on and would like to help contribute to them, and also as you're recruiting, like for Angular, for example, people outside in the community learn Angular and build things with Angular, and then if they want to work at Google, having Angular on your resume is a pretty good thing, because there are tons of projects at Google using Angular. So if you're a contributor to Angular, it's even better for getting a job at Google or a company using Angular.
Cool. Let's talk about life on the team and working on that product. So Victor, we know you had your hand in doing router stuff, a lot of other stuff like that. Can you kind of give us a rundown of what kind of stuff that you worked on, and then kind of what was that experience like?
Okay, so early on, I worked on a few core pieces, mostly with TBS and a few other folks. It was like 3 or 4 guys originally, then the core team grew a little bit. So I was working a lot on dependency injection early on, change detection, forms, just a few key components to support like reactive programming or support functional programming, because I came from a background where I did all the functional programming and all the reactive programming with streams or observables. So I tried to make sure that the framework like supports these use cases fairly well. That's what I did early on for the first year and a half, or the first 2 years. And then, because we had a few iterations with the router, I was asked to do another one. It's like, so anyway, so I had to do the router. And it turned out to be very fun, like it wasn't my plan to do the router. I was not super passionate about routing, but once I started working on it, I found out how complex the problem is, how nuanced it is. And it took me a while to figure out how to do it right. And I think the last half a year, when I was mostly working on the router, was probably the most interesting time on the team when it comes to actual work. Because one hard problem that I had to solve with the rest of the community to make everyone happy when everyone was already kind of unhappy, It was very interesting. Working on the team was a lot of fun. It's a lot of very strong individuals, like people with different backgrounds, who are very, very strong engineers. So you can learn with, obviously you can learn from Mishko, and has a lot of experience, from many different companies, but pretty much from anyone, anyone I talk to, I could learn from, not just the technical stuff, but also the way I communicate my thoughts online, because I tend to be a little bit more, how should I say, direct, a little bit too harsh at times. So it took me a while to figure out how to, massage my messaging into something milder and more palatable to the American ear.
What was your day-to-day like, though? Did you pair a lot with people? Was it a lot of solo work?
So it's mostly solo work. We did pair
just checking it out.
It was mostly solo work. We did some pairing, but not that much. We had a lot of design discussions, so that was the closest thing to active collaboration we had, when we spent a few hours at the whiteboard, drawing stuff, laughing a lot, making weird jokes, whatnot. Which is kind of cool, that was a lot of fun. And then it just at least the way I work is I sit down and I quietly think about the problem for 6 hours straight, and then I write some code along the way. So I'm not the one who I enjoy pairing. I used to do a lot of pairing before, but I think pairing and solo work are 2 different activities. One is good for maybe education and business work, when you need to figure out what is the right solution. The second one is good when you have a very complex algorithmic problem, and you just think super hard about it for a day or 2, and then you write the algorithm at the very end.
Cool, Jeff?
I forget what the original question was. What was it like working? What was the day-to-day like?
Yeah, what kind of stuff did you work on specifically?
Yeah.
And then what was the day-to-day like for you?
So near the later part of my time, I was the tech lead of the mobile team, and that was a lot of fun, because we were basically figuring out how to make Angular better for mobile all around. like there's the like installed app side of it with Ionic and NativeScript and those kinds of things, and then there's the web side of it with progressive web apps. And so that was a lot of fun. That's one of the nice things about working at Google is we had access to a lot of people like Adi Asmani. We worked with really closely at the beginning of the year, and other folks who just know a lot about things like Ilya Grigorik. We were able to talk to about a lot of the deeper plumbing things we were trying with HTTP2, and even Jake Archibald like helped getting his advice on service worker implementation. Like just having access to a lot of these people at Google was a lot of fun. And so Alex Rickabaugh and I worked really closely for the past the greater part of 2016 on building tooling and best practices, and just getting the community thinking about building apps in this progressive web apps way. We would have a lot of what we were doing was experimentation and prototyping, and then building tools out of that. And for that, we would do like a pairing day once a week, where we would work on our own and solve things the other days of the week and collaborate in more abstract ways. But on every Wednesday, we would just block the calendar off and spend the whole day pairing. But so we have the mobile team, and each team kind of decides their own way of operating. That was just what we figured worked for us. And
Did
other
you
teams
always
do
work
different
from
things.
the office, or did you ever like do from home?
Mostly from the office. Like the Angular team is very much a work together in person type of office. You know, with us being outside now, we're trying to stretch it a little bit more remote. You know, we've got folks like Pete and a lot of the Angular 1 people who are remote, so teams are either, in my experience, teams are either distributed or not distributed. And the Angular team is a not distributed office. It's a work together. And so we have a few distributed people where it becomes a little bit more, we have to make sure we're communicating well to those folks. And I think us being on the outside maybe pushes that a little bit further to help get some more things communicated in Slack rather than just in-person conversations, and even GitHub issues as well.
What was the floor plan like? I mean, you guys, when you worked in that office, is it open? Everybody's kind of got laptops, or kind of cruising anywhere, or they have stations, offices? What was that like?
For the most part, it was open office. Last year, I managed to swing it that the mobile team would get our own office, so it was just me and Alex Rickabaugh in this quiet room with windows everywhere for a while. This was like, we were in a building, our building, the second floor is being renovated, and so we had to move out of it once we moved upstairs. But for about 6 months, it was just like paradise of quiet office, focus all day. Whiteboard our thoughts, have meetings if we needed to without having to book a room. But other than that, now everybody's in an open office. But it's a really nicely designed office. Like the acoustics are really nice, and I don't like open floor plans generally, but the one that the Angular team is on now is pretty nice, and it's a nice combination of everyone's close together, but not too noisy, and you can still focus. Victor may disagree.
No, it was nice as open offices go. It was pretty good. I'm like same as Jeff. I like my own space, like when it's absolutely quiet and nobody's passing by, because my attention is very fragile. Like even slight movement like completely destroys my concentration.
The hard part was in the office before we left the company. It was me, Victor, and Rob Wormald sitting right next to each other. So if we didn't have our headphones on, it'd be easy to get into a series of joking, especially with Mishko too.
Yeah. It just it's a lot of fun, but then like you don't get a lot of done. So it's like, should I have fun or should I do work? I'm paid anyways, So
I remember when I was in school, I had to get separated from people. Is that what it's like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brad sometimes had to put Rob in the hallway so that Victor and I could concentrate.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Victor's more the instigator than Rob.
I guess that's true.
So did you guys have somebody that was like your go-to person when you ran into that tough problem, or had this idea about, oh, I'm going to pull this off with this code and I think it's going to be pretty sweet? What do you think? Like, who was that person that you ran stuff off of that you just was your go-to person on the team?
For me, it was usually Mishka, because I worked on core. And Mishka is heavily involved in core. Even though he doesn't write a lot of code in the Angular repo itself, He does a lot of thinking, and he makes sure that the framework like stays consistent. So if you want to implement anything major, like make a major API change, it has to go through him anyways. So might as well, start talking to him earlier, so not to waste your time. If I have a good idea, or I think it's a good idea, Mishka will be the one who is going to like make sure that the idea is consistent with the rest of the framework. So I would talk to him, and he was actually great for brainstorming solutions for a problem or whatnot. And after a few iterations, maybe a week, I would come up with something which is fairly decent. But it was lots of guys on the team, depending on the area that I'm touching. If I was touching the compiler heavily, so I would talk to Tobias because he's the one who understands the the implementation detail of the compiler really well and whatnot.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of a layered thing. If I had an idea, I would first run it by somebody like Victor or Rob, who can help think through something, and maybe like they're both ideas people, so they get excited and like to think through things. And then I would work it through a little bit more, and then take it to one of the people who specialize, like Mishko or Tobias or Igor, to say, okay, I've thought this through. I think we should do this, and then they would have less to tear apart if I thought it through with someone else. That's the good. I love that about the Angular team, is that we can tear ideas apart without tearing people apart. That if something doesn't make sense, we're honest and direct about it, and we try to find the parts of the idea that are good or the parts that do make sense, and extract the good parts of it, and work together to figure out how to solve fundamental problems, even if the idea itself wasn't the right approach.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, and then who was the go-to person when you guys had to make some decision on where to eat for lunch, or did you like always eat at the campus there, or do you have somebody that's like, okay, we're gonna go out to lunch today? Who's gonna make the decision?
Jeremy.
I think Victor and Jeremy are the picky ones.
Because both Jeremy and I do not eat meat, and so it's easier for Jeremy to make the decision, because then the decision will be satisfactory for me. So it was Jeremy.
Well, the thing about Google is every cafeteria has good vegetarian options.
That is not true. That is not true.
So it's more an excuse.
No. Every cafeteria has a vegetarian option. Like very few have good vegetarian options. So you don't eat vegetarian, so you don't know.
So Jeremy and Victor rarely got invited to lunch because we all knew that they would just make us go. So I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But there were Victor has 2 cafeterias that he would like. So you would know if you're going to go to lunch with Victor, you have to choose between the salad cafeteria or.
What is the salad? It is the salad cafeteria. There are no.
Salad.
It was really good. Yeah, the salads are very good. I like them a lot. That's why I'm that slim. A lot of salads, not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I recently went down there for the GDE thing, and something that I asked most people who worked there was, have you used the swimming pool? Because there's a freaking Olympic-sized swimming pool at every single cafeteria. It's kind of weird. While you're eating, you look out the windows and see people exercising, and you kind of feel bad. You're like, should probably stop eating this. But did you guys actually use all of the workout stuff there, or no?
Not a single time. Not a single time. So, and I cannot swim, so I would drown in the pool. So to the dead Victor in the pool, it's not a good.
I used the gyms. I never went swimming there, but I would.
Swimming is just dangerous. Think
true.
about it. Why would you go swimming in the water? Where you're one step away from just being dead.
That's a good point.
That could really be taken with anything. I think you could be why would you go to work and develop things when walking up the stairs you could trip and fall and break?
Yeah, I'm actually very careful with the stairs too.
Victor will not go on stairs.
Are you guys kidding, or are you being serious?
No, with swimming, I'm actually serious. I do not like water. We evolved not to be in water. Yes, I'm no longer in the ocean swimming. I'm here, covered, by walls around me, to distance myself from the water and from the nature. For very good reason.
You missed an opportunity, man. You could have.
I don't know. It's too risky. It's like playing Russian roulette.
Yeah, let's not get started on Victor's views against nature.
Oh yeah, I'm against nature. I have a party called the Grey Party. Grass was a mistake. Pavement.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny because I'm the exact opposite. I'd rather be in an aquarium working on code, sitting in water all day. I love water.
Yeah, you've got that waterproof laptop.
I work at the pool some days.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a question. Got a couple questions coming in. One is, what are some of the tools you found helpful in your daily work? How do you use them to improve your workflow? Is there stuff that you guys use it at Google and the team to do those sort of things, like to-do list, time management tools, stuff like that?
Sure.
This is Victor's category.
Yeah, so I'm into time management like a lot. You know, for 10 years, I've been writing a lot about time and thinking a lot about time management. So I use my own set of tools and my own methodology for managing my own methodology for using my own time. And I use Trello mostly for it, but I use it in a very specific way. And I actually wrote a blog post a while ago where I described the way in which I use Trello for my own personal life and for my work life. Inside the core team, because every team is different, you know, we try different tools. We tried a lot of tools, and I think for main reason is we are engineers, so we are like, you know, obsessed with software. We're like, oh, there is a new tool. It looks slightly fancier than the old one. This tool will solve all our problems, you know. So we tried maybe like a dozen tools, and we ended up using what were we using? I don't even know what we're using right now. I think GitHub is the one that we decided to use at the very end. We abandoned everything else.
Yeah, I mean, Slack and GitHub is basically
Slack and
staples
GitHub
of the team.
Yeah, but we tried a lot of tools. Somewhat.
We went through an Asana phase for a while, and we ended up. So we had, like, Mishko and I had concocted some weird processes around Asana that were sound. I mean, they were technically sound, but getting people to actually do it was the hard part.
Yeah.
What is Asana? Never.
It's a project. I wouldn't call it project management. It's like a task management tool.
Yeah.
Is it like Basecamp or no?
It's a
lot
different. Yeah,
like an enterprise Basecamp.
It's kind of organized as a tree of tasks.
Yeah, I actually built the same. So at some point I was so into time management, I built my own tool, as you do, and it was like a ginormous tree with lots of tags and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So on the team, we were that obsessed. Well, not obsessed. We were, you know, into tools that much. We were building our own tool for triaging issues, you know, for a while, just because, you know, that was a hope that, you know, once we build the tool, the number of issues will go from like 2,000 to 100 somehow mysteriously, which of course it did not.
You know, if somebody were to build a tool, like, I think the biggest tool any of us were missing, or anybody who works on popular open source projects, would be better management of GitHub notifications.
Yeah, it's just useless.
I've seen some people working on, like, I think there's a project called Octobox or something. Somebody released an open source inbox soon, recently, which I haven't tried yet. But like, it's just, you can't turn on notifications for Angular because it's either fire hose or nothing. Same with like the AngularJS project, both. So you get all notifications for every issue, even if it's not something, a component that you own. And so you miss a lot of the important issues, and you think, oh, everything's great. And you just work on something that's not priority.
That and the ability to turn on a notification as like unread to be able to go back to it later on would be nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of fine-grained controls that would be nice to be able to create more powerful filters for GitHub.
You should
I would
feature requests.
Out here that we're announcing, right? We got some great Angular platform. You know, GitHub's doing the whole GraphQL thing. Hey, there's a possibility to build this application for somebody out there.
I would pay anything for it.
Yeah, me too.
With an asterisk.
I would give my left arm that I already owned. I lost it in a bet to Igor on the team. Speaking of the team, at some point we had a bet about who would, it was American Eagle and Canadian Goose fight, you know, whatever. And since I'm Canadian and he's like kind of American, you know, I mean, I lost because obviously fucking Eagle is much stronger, you know. So I lost my left arm. But it still belongs to Google and to Igor. The rest of me belongs to me.
Nice. So
I'm just happy that another repo or another source of code is getting tasked out of one of our episodes rather than just the Angular CLI.
Yeah. Why did you bring it up, Broccoli? Now we're going to shift gears to CLI.
It's funny you should mention that. No. So, okay, look, I know it's not all roses, right? And I ain't gonna lie. There's times at my work when I'm like tasked with doing something, I'm going, oh, come on, dude, I don't want to do another DevOps thing, really. So, what was that sort of thing? Those moments? Did you have any of those moments where you're kind of like, do I really have to work on this?
For me, I I managed all of the infrastructure for Angular for pretty much the whole time I was there, which was like AngularJS.org and the docs site and all that kind of thing. So I inherited this kind of PHP version of the site that Mishko had made on an evening one time, and had to migrate it to like Google Cloud Platform with Nginx and all these crazy redirects and these deployment scripts and VMs and things like that. This was before like Firebase hosting was and tools like that were so nice and could do this kind of thing. Like managing that, and when it would go down, sometimes being responsible for that was not fun. Now it's been a long time when it's just been stable. Like we've worked out the kinks, and sites tend to stay up. Our DNS is with Google, so it's reliable and doesn't get DDoSed so easily. But that kind of thing, and like helping other, like setting up sites and things like that. Like it's just, when I joined the team, that was kind of my first project, and I got stuck with it for the whole time I was there. That was one thing that wasn't that fun. Once we started moving sites to Firebase, like the new sites we would set up on Firebase, like Angular.io is on Firebase, then that all became a lot easier.
Cool. How about you, Victor?
No, I actually enjoyed most of the stuff. I don't think I had anything like that. Even when I had a little bit of work like that, when I had to like patch up a shell script or whatnot, I enjoyed it in a weird way, because I don't actually use Bash. I use a different shell, I use Fish. So like I had to Google how to do it in Bash and whatnot. So it was. I don't think I had any like boring work that I had to do.
The caretaker rotation would be the other kind of boring thing.
Yeah, but then you feel like in the state of like Zen, when you have to do this set of steps, for a week, it goes, by itself, and then as a caretaker, you get a bottle of whiskey. Right now it's vodka. It used to be whiskey, but we finished the whiskey because it's tough, and when it's tough, you need to drink a lot. So
yeah, the caretaker is.
I'm not joking. It's serious stuff. So we had a bottle of alcohol next.
It was a really nice bottle of scotch that Alex Rickabaugh brought in. Lagavulin, I think is what it was. I don't know Scotch brands, but I think that's how you say it. So we would be on a rotation where for a week you would be responsible for drinking a lot and for merging the changes from GitHub into Google, at which point you have to test all Google projects depending on Angular to make sure that you don't break them. And if you do break them, you have to figure out why they're broken and how to fix it. And there are any number of ways you could fix it, like committing upstream or fixing their project or anything like that. So sometimes it would be really tricky to figure out why something was broken. Like, is it a bad test? Are they using Angular in a way that they shouldn't be? Or is there a regression in Angular itself? So that would be kind of challenging.
So just remember, if you get an email from Brad, this is the kind of stuff you get to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. But the good news is you're only on for a week, and it goes between however many people.
I actually didn't find it that not. Once again, so I found those weeks the most peaceful weeks in my life. Because you have a set of steps you need to do. It's not most of the work you do on the Angular team is creative, intellectually challenging work. So you need to think really hard. You're always bothered by the fact that you cannot figure something out, or the design is not elegant enough, and it's never elegant enough. And during that week, you're like, okay, I'm merging stuff in, seems to be fine. My alcohol is with me, so it's pretty good. It's like vacation.
Now, and just to be clear, like these are the views of our guests, not necessarily our show, right?
So I want to give you guys a platform here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your newest endeavor? We talked about all of your time here at Google and on the Angular team. What about with your new endeavor? You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Thanks for asking, Broccoli. Is it okay if I call you Broccoli?
Of course.
Okay. Because other people were calling you Mike, but Ben Lesh introduced you to me as Broccoli a couple years ago, and so that's how I know you now. So Narwhal, and it's spelled N-R-W-L. It's because we're a startup and we have to have an interesting spelling, and the domain was available. So what we're doing is we're providing consulting to large teams using Angular. So people who they've just started or they're planning to start on projects. We want to come in and work alongside them throughout their project, mostly with helping them figure out the right architecture, figuring out solving problems like routing and state management, and how to do things like shared libraries for many projects to use together. we're structuring the company in a way that we want to work with them on a long-term basis and help their teams understand Angular and understand how to make decisions and help steer them without us, coming in and building everything for you and you take it over when we're done. And so we have this product that we're calling on-demand consulting that is basically based on that. Like we work with companies for a year or some other time that makes sense for their projects and just work alongside their development team and help them get started right and help them when they're into production to make sure that things are going well. And basically kind of, support for your team and insurance and all those things so that you can go forward with confidence, get to production more quickly without having to, figure out what makes sense for you as you go, that kind of thing.
So you guys are obviously very passionate about teaching and helping others. I mean, Victor, you have a ton of content that you've written over time. Jeff, same thing. Jeff, you mentioned, supporting some of the stuff. So yeah, I mean, is this something that grew out of like you kind of sat together and said, look, we want to take this next step and we really want to be more involved in communicating and working with clients and teaching them the stuff that we had a chance to work on and really helping them understand that? And is that a big passion of yours? That's why you're taking on this venture?
Yeah, definitely. So Victor and I, we both have backgrounds as consultants, and like I said, I have a lot of background with open source and consulting, and I really love the model for it. I've done it for years, and we came to a point where Victor can talk about his personal things of moving to Toronto, which he's recently done, and we just were talking, and we both had this background, and given the timing of Angular coming out, we were both just like, I think it's a great time to do it. I think a lot of folks are going to be making the jump from 1 to 2, and really want to get back into this whole entrepreneurial thing, and so it just made sense, and we decided to go for it.
So how'd you break the big news?
Yeah. So Victor had a one-on-one scheduled with Brad. We all had regular one-on-ones with Brad, and so they were sitting down for the meeting, and then I came into the room, and Brad was like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Brad, we have some news for you." And I told him that we were leaving the team, and Brad was looking at Victor to see if I was serious, and Victor was like, "Yeah, he's serious. We're doing it." And we told him like right after we decided to go for it, we wanted to let him know right away. We gave a month or so heads up, just because we didn't want to be this weird time where we would know we were leaving and we were still taking on new responsibilities and things like that. And so yeah, we told him right when we had decided to do it, and he was super supportive of it and was really excited. He's an entrepreneurial guy himself and has done startups like this before, and so he was basically just excited for us, asked how he could be helpful, and everyone else on the team was very much the same, just really supportive. And I like to think they miss us, but they were also excited for us to do this new thing, and I think overall is a really great thing for Angular to have. There's already a great ecosystem of folks out there providing services and helping build applications and do training. And I think we also contribute a lot to that ecosystem outside of the team, where we can actually provide services and contracts with folks instead of the core team, where they have a DevRel team who can give some time to folks, but we can really build a good, reliable business for folks, and also help keep contributing to Angular, keep acting as an external developer relations team for the Angular team, kind of out there in the trenches with folks.
This is not just about your consultation work and stuff like that. I mean, you guys have been publishing some posts recently about some content in Angular stuff and providing that out there to the community. Some really great posts. Especially the most recent one, it talked about different rendering engine experiment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one nice thing about the holidays, and starting a company in the month of December when a lot of folks are on holiday already, is we get to just write blog articles and do interesting things in between talking to folks. So yeah, it's been really fun to have some time to be able to focus on writing content.
And I'm assuming you guys are going to keep doing that going forward. I mean, I think it's a passion for you guys. We've seen that over time. They have written this content, and we're going to the community is just going to keep getting more from Narwhal on these topics.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and even we've got a whole backlog of things we want to write about just based on the conversations we've had with a lot of customers so far, based on common challenges we see and common patterns we see evolving. Yeah, so we definitely want to keep that up and keep on blogging at blog.narwhal.io. I'll just put a plug in there, nrwl.io, blog.nrwl.io. Yeah, so I mean, even this week, just before this, Victor published a new post, and we've got some more that we're going to be publishing, and we also want to keep on. We'll have some more open source projects we'll be publishing as we go, and so yeah, a lot to stay tuned for.
So being that you're going to be staying there in the forefront of the community with blog posts, where could people possibly come to meet you guys, whether or not you'll be planning on being on any particular conferences or anything like that? Yeah,
we definitely plan to be around at the same conferences that we have been. ngConf in April, we are platinum sponsors of, which is really exciting because I really like ngConf has been a huge thing for me, just getting to know the community better and giving talks, and it's a lot of fun for I think everyone here has been to ngConf. So that's really exciting for us to be able to sponsor it and to have a presence there where we'll have a booth set up, and we'll be talking with folks there, and we'll also be giving talks, and we're giving a workshop there. So a lot of fun stuff, and we're also going to be giving the keynotes on ng Cruise, which I think a couple of the panelists here will be also attending that.
Maybe not all. The important follow-up to that. Are Narwhal stickers going to be in attendance at those conferences?
Oh, that's a great question. I think we definitely need to get some stickers going. Victor, do you agree?
What would the mascot be?
Stickers?
I kind of feel like it's like a tornado.
The logo?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, tornado's good because it's fast and active and destructive.
Destructive. Perfect.
Deadly. Terrifying.
Destruction. My newest son's middle name is Destruction. Theodore Destruction.
For real?
Yep.
Well, hey, Victor, Pascal wants to know, are you going to publish more articles on mindful programming?
Oh yeah. So at some point, I published now because I am into not without quotes. So I'm into
I got you in that habit, huh?
Yeah, it's like this habit. It's like, what is going on? So into mindfulness and just reflecting on myself. So I published an article called The Mindful Programmer, which you can Google. I think it's really good. And I still do the same kind of stuff. I still reflect on what I do on my day-to-day work, on my activities, trying to be not more productive. Productivity is something dirty word right now, but sort of a little bit more selective about how I do my work to achieve more, to feel good about myself and about my work. So I'm going to write another one. I actually had one, like a draft that I put together a couple of days ago, but I'm thinking when to publish it, maybe after New Year's.
It'll be really interesting to hear too about your thoughts on that, why you're with Google, and then now that experience that's like on your own here, right? And how it changes your approach to the things and stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely different because when I was at Google, the fact that I had to commute and go to the office was wonderful in some ways because I can, talk to people and overall have a chance to joke around or whatever, to do silly stuff, and but it was constraining in a way of how I was doing my work because I had to be with people, so the most productive work, the most productive chunk of my time was actually before I would go to the office from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. And now I have the whole day, because I work from home, I have an office at home. And I don't know what to do because I have so much, productive time or whatever,
You just have to talk to me all day.
Yeah, I talk to Jeff, he is basically like my therapist. For half an hour every day, I lie down on the couch, that's what happens, dun, 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 dun.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, we're at the top of the hour, so time to wrap up. Tips, picks, anybody got any? Let's see, Jeff, you got something for us?
I did. I actually was going to bring it so I could show it, but I got my kids this cool little robot a couple of months ago, but I haven't had a chance to actually do much with it until recently. It's called Cosmo, and you should look it up. It's Cosmo with a Z, I think, and it's made by a company called Anki, ANKI. But it's basically there were people who worked at Pixar and other companies and, designed robots for the movies, and they decided to make a real robot that was kind of like the personality of Wall-E or some of like Wall-E and some of the other robots from Pixar. So it's this really cool little robot. You have an app on your phone and you're connected with the robot, and it drives around and gets to know you. Like, it recognizes your face and says your name and plays with blocks, plays games with you, and it's just like, my kids love it. It's this really cool little nicely designed, neat robot that has a cool personality about it. But I would suggest picking one up even if you don't have kids. Like, it's fun to play with and look at.
Awesome. Victor?
Yeah, I have two picks. Both of them are books written by Sarah Bakewell. And the books are At the Existentialist Cafe, Freedom Bean and Apricot Cocktails. This is an awesome book about phenomenologists like Husserl and Heidegger, and existentialists, Camus, Sartre, and the rest. And it's basically a book about these philosophers, their lives, relationships, hardships they went through. And so the book is about their philosophy, but also about their lives and how their lives affected their philosophy. It's a very interesting read. It's probably the best book I read this year, and I highly recommend it. And the second one, the similar book, it's called How to Live. It's about Michel de Montaigne, who is a French philosopher who lived in the 16th century. Similar kind of book, but instead of Sartre, we talk about Montaigne. Again, a fantastic book, highly recommend. That's it.
Can I also add a plug for our Twitter account?
Ooh, yeah.
NRWL_IO. Okay, no, I'm sorry. Broccoli says we can't plug that.
No, you can. You just need to follow all of us from that account. That's all.
Oh, okay, maybe.
You're famous enough to have your beard has its own Twitter account.
Yep, which I still don't know who
Is it
controls.
verified? It's not famous if it's not verified.
That's true. I can't even get verified. That's right too. But yeah, so NRWL_IO. We post our blog articles and other cool things there.
Yes, we'll throw that up in the episode notes, so we'll get the link up there as well. Definitely follow that. And like I said, they're putting out blog post content that's great, free, awesome. So follow that. Okay, panelists, you guys got anything? Alyssa?
I totally do. I'm pulling up. Can I share? Is it possible? I think I can, right? Your
We
entire
can do
screen.
that.
Share. Oh, it just went. All right, let me know when you see it. Do you see it?
Yep.
This is my glorious Christmas present that my husband got me, and it's from an artist called Courtney Kelly, and I'll be posting her. This right here on Etsy. So yeah, you can either obviously buy something that she's already made, or you can send her pictures of your pets and then she'll paint them. And this, in case you didn't know, is very real life to Gummy and Barnaby. So yes, that is my one pick for the day, is this artist on Etsy.
That is very cool. Very cool. Austin?
I don't have any technology picks, but my wife got me a Oculus Touch for Christmas. It is awesome. It blows my mind how well it's done. So it's really cool. If you have an Oculus or you're thinking about that, definitely get the Touch if you're going to get it.
Cool. Broccoli?
I actually mine is a little bit of a plug for next week. I've had so much fun the last time I did a this I learned episode on here, and next year to kick off the new year we're going to do another one. So looking forward to that next week. Also, while we're on this episode, I hear my kids reading a book from the other room. Turns out said book is a book about narwhals, so age and appropriate Angular content. So.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, my one pick is something I got for the holidays as well, and that's the pocket hose. So it's one of those hoses that doesn't coil up. It just kind of expands. And as seen on TV. I know it's been around for a while, but I finally got one and pretty stoked on that. It's pretty killer. So
Have you used it yet?
I have used it. I rinsed out my wetsuit yesterday or the other day.
I'm imagining you like running outside to use your pocket hose. Like, oh, I got it finally.
I almost ran and just grabbed it right now. I'm here at home today, so I almost ran and grabbed it. I should have showed it, but yeah, it's pretty sweet. I mean, I don't know, hose.
I'm gonna request that you show it next week out in the yard.
So is it like a
Around my neck like a
spring?
chain.
Is it a spring inside, or how does it contract and expand?
All right, I'm gonna be right back. You guys just keep talking. I'll be right back.
This is gonna make an excellent tweet. The pocket hose on AngularAir.
I've seen it before. It's just like it's like the hair things that are
Yeah,
scrunchy.
I looked it up on Amazon, but the pictures are leaving me wondering.
It's not like a rubber thing. It's like a collapsible weird tube.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of rubber bands and a hose put together.
I'm not sure if I'm for it.
I'm just jealous that you guys have warm enough weather that you can do something outside with a hose.
I know, it's like 76. Oh no, 83 here.
Wow.
All right, here it is, the hose, right?
Wow.
So it's like just the stretchy
Is that
material.
from your
Just you can kind of do whatever, and then it just coils up. I mean, you don't have to worry about wrapping it up. Doesn't get twisted. Then it even comes with this handy nozzle here.
Wow.
It's kind of cool, yeah.
How does that fit in your pocket?
I don't know. Bad marketing. I don't know.
I'm so tweeting like hashtag ngconf swag idea right there. The pocket hose.
Yeah, this would be a good one, right? I highly recommend it. I think I got water all over myself. All right. Well, thanks a ton, Victor, Jeff, for joining us today, telling us this story, learning all about your time on the team and everything that you contributed to this platform that we love. And best of luck to your new venture. Really looking forward to it and seeing more content that you guys are putting out there. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right. And so,
Guys.
like Mike mentioned, next week we're going to do another Today I Learned episode, kick off the new year with another one of those. And then we got a bunch of good content lined up as we start out 2017. So please join us every Tuesday. We're looking forward to it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. Happy
All right,
holidays.
yeah.